When people hear the name Jordan Peterson, they often think of someone urging individuals to take responsibility, stand up straight, and find meaning even in life's most difficult circumstances. But behind these calls lies a deeper invitation, an invitation to transform into the person you always sensed you could become. This is not about perfection, nor is it about chasing an unrealistic image. It is about aligning who you are today with the highest version of yourself that exists in possibility. Most of us live between two selves. There is the self that acts out daily habits, often carried by routine, fear, and comfort. Then there is the self that whispers quietly, reminding you of the courage you once had, the creativity you still carry, and the purpose that has been buried under distractions. Becoming the person you've always wanted to be begins with listening to that second voice. The challenge is that transformation never arrives at your doorstep wrapped neatly. It demands discipline, clarity, and sacrifice. Think about the stories of great figures, whether in literature, history, or even in your own community. Every single one of them became who they were by passing through trials. In fact, their struggles became the very forge that shaped their character. Peterson emphasizes this because he understands a universal truth. You don't grow by avoiding weight, you grow by shouldering it. Now, consider the idea of responsibility. Many people today treat responsibility like a burden, something to be avoided. But what if responsibility is actually the path to freedom? Imagine someone drifting aimlessly with no goals or duties. They might feel free for a while, but soon that freedom curdles into emptiness. Contrast that with the person who commits to a meaningful role, whether that role is, as a parent, a teacher, a leader, or even simply someone who takes charge of their own habits. The weight of responsibility becomes the very thing that strengthens them. Responsibility gives life structure, and structure allows growth. But responsibility alone isn't enough. You must also confront chaos, the unknown aspects of your life that make you uncomfortable. For example, you might avoid learning a new skill because you fear failure, or you delay a difficult conversation because it might cause conflict. Chaos feels threatening, but within chaos lies the seed of transformation. Peterson often frames this as the dance between order and chaos. Too much order and life becomes rigid. Too much chaos and it becomes overwhelming. The goal is to stand at the edge, brave enough to engage with the unknown, yet disciplined enough to bring it into order. This balance shapes identity. Take the act of setting your room in order, one of Peterson's most repeated ideas. At first, it sounds trivial, but it isn't about cleanliness. It is about signaling to yourself that you are capable of turning disorder into order. When you arrange your space, you practice the art of arranging your mind. When you create order in the little things, you prepare yourself to create order in the larger, more frightening parts of your life. Another essential step is truth. Truth is often uncomfortable. It means admitting when you have failed. It means recognizing when you've been dishonest with yourself or others. But truth clears the fog. Without truth, you cannot see the path forward. Many people live with hidden lies. They tell themselves they'll change tomorrow, or they pretend they don't know what they actually want. But when you confront truth, even if it hurts, you build a foundation strong enough to hold growth. Let's take an example. Imagine a young person stuck in a job they dislike. They say, "It's fine, I can tolerate it." But deep down, they know it is draining their potential. If they continue lying to themselves, they'll spend years drifting. But if they face the truth that they need to take a risk, develop new skills, and seek a role aligned with their values, they suddenly activate the possibility of becoming who they always wanted to be. Truth opens the door. Yet, even with truth, the journey is not instant. Becoming your best self requires time. That's why Peterson encourages setting small, achievable goals. Don't aim to revolutionize your life in a single day. Instead, set one corner right, then another. Each small victory builds confidence. Over time, those victories compound into transformation. What makes this journey inspiring is that it's never just about you. When you become stronger, more responsible, and more truthful, you begin to radiate influence outward. Families stabilize, communities improve, And even workplaces shift when one person commits to genuine transformation. In a way, becoming the person you've always wanted to be isn't selfish, it's service. But let's not romanticize the process. There will be setbacks. You'll stumble, make mistakes, and sometimes regress. But those moments are not signs of failure, they are evidence of growth. A climber who never slips is not climbing anything difficult. What matters is that you continue to climb. And here lies a surprising reality. The person you've always wanted to be is not hiding in the future. They are already within you, waiting to be uncovered. Every step of discipline, every act of honesty, every confrontation with chaos peels back the layers of fear and hesitation to reveal that higher version of yourself. So ask yourself, what is one responsibility you have avoided? What is one truth you have hidden from yourself? And what is one small act of order you can create today? Begin there. Because transformation is not a sudden leap. It's the steady rhythm of daily courage. By accepting the weight of life, by seeking truth, and by standing at the edge of chaos, you move closer to the person you've always sensed you could become. And perhaps, when you look back years later, you'll realize that the version you once dreamed of was not a distant fantasy, but a calling that demanded your courage to answer. If session 1 was about responsibility, truth, and order, then the next step is about vision, creating a future worth aiming at. Jordan Peterson often highlights that people need a target, something that pulls them forward, because without a destination, the road becomes meaningless. The question isn't just, who am I now? But also, who could I become if I gave my full effort? Most people underestimate how powerful their own vision can be. They drift without a clear sense of direction, waiting for circumstances to guide them. But circumstances are like waves in the ocean. They move you anywhere unless you learn how to steer. Having vision is like having a compass. Even when storms come, you know where you're heading. So, how does one begin to build this vision? Peterson suggests an exercise that seems simple but is profound. Write down the person you want to be in 5 years. Describe their habits, their work, their relationships, their health, their spiritual outlook, and even their daily routines. Don't just think in vague terms like successful or happy. Write down specifics. Do they rise early? Do they read consistently? Do they treat people with respect? Do they speak with clarity instead of hesitation? By writing it, you make it real. The mind needs images to follow. Just as an architect cannot build without a blueprint, you cannot become your highest self without a clear picture. Once you have that vision, you must compare it honestly with where you are now. That comparison may sting because the gap might be wide, but that gap is not there to shame you. It exists to inspire you. This is where discipline becomes crucial. Vision without discipline is daydreaming. Discipline is what transforms a possibility into reality. Think of it like a bridge. On one side is your current self, on the other is your ideal self. Discipline is the structure that connects the two. Without it, you remain stranded. But discipline is often misunderstood. Many think of it as harshness or punishment. In reality, discipline is an act of love toward your future self. Every time you choose to wake up on time, to study instead of scrolling endlessly, or to exercise instead of procrastinate, you are showing loyalty to the person you could become. Discipline is not an enemy, it is a form of freedom. Now, vision and discipline create progress, but they also reveal something deeper: the importance of values. Without values, even success can feel empty. Imagine reaching your goals only to realize you sacrificed integrity along the way. This is why Peterson emphasizes moral grounding. Your vision should not just be about external success, it should align with principles like honesty, courage, humility, and service. These values give your journey depth and prevent you from becoming shallow in your pursuit. Consider a practical example. Let's say your vision includes financial stability. That's a good goal. But if you build it by exploiting others or ignoring your own conscience, you may achieve wealth, but at the cost of inner peace. On the other hand, if your stability comes through honest work, wise planning, and contributing value to others, then not only will you have resources, but you'll also carry the peace of knowing you did it with integrity. Values are the anchor that prevents your ship from drifting, no matter how strong the winds of ambition blow. Another layer in becoming the person you want to be is resilience. Life will never go according to plan. Even the best vision will encounter obstacles, unexpected losses, failures, betrayals, or setbacks. Many people quit when these storms arrive. But Peterson reminds us that resilience is built precisely in those moments of trial. Resilience is not about avoiding pain. It is about facing it and growing stronger because of it. Think of a tree in strong winds. The storm bends its branches, shakes its roots, but over time, that pressure forces the roots to grow deeper into the ground. In the same way, your challenges, if faced with courage, will drive your character deeper. You may not see the growth immediately, but years later you will realize that those moments of suffering were the very soil where your strength was born. And here's an important insight: your vision doesn't have to be grand in the eyes of the world. It doesn't need to look impressive on a stage or be written in newspapers. The person you've always wanted to be might be someone who lives quietly but with immense integrity, raising a strong family, helping a community, building small but meaningful projects. True greatness is not always loud. Sometimes it is the quiet consistency of a life well lived. So how do you put this into practice? Start by asking yourself 3 questions every morning. What is one thing I can do today to move closer to my vision? What is one habit I can strengthen to build discipline? What is one value I can honor, even in small ways, that will keep me grounded? Answering these daily will transform your mindset over time. The beauty of this practice is that it doesn't demand perfection. It simply demands presence. Being awake enough to choose growth instead of drifting. At some point in this journey, you'll notice a shift. The person you wanted to be will no longer feel like a distant dream. You'll start to embody them, little by little. Your words will match your values. Your habits will align with your goals. And the gap between your vision and reality will shrink until one day you wake up and realize you have become that person. The paradox is that when you arrive there, you'll likely see another horizon, another higher version of yourself waiting. That is the beauty of human potential. There is always more to reach for, not because you are lacking, but because growth itself is part of life's meaning. Becoming the person you've always wanted to be is not a single achievement. It is a lifelong journey of vision, discipline, values, and resilience. And as you walk that road, you'll find that the process itself is the reward. In the earlier sessions, we explored responsibility, truth, order, vision, discipline, and values. But there is one more dimension that ties everything together: meaning. Without meaning, even the most disciplined life feels empty. Jordan Peterson often stresses that meaning is not something you simply invent. It emerges when you take on responsibility and align yourself with values that matter. So what does it mean to live a meaningful life? First, it means understanding that meaning is found in the pursuit of what is good, even when it's difficult. Many people chase comfort or pleasure, but those things fade quickly. True meaning comes when you carry a load that matters, something that contributes beyond yourself. It could be raising a family, building an honest career, helping those in need, or even creating art that inspires others. The specifics differ, but the essence is the same. Meaning is discovered when you shoulder weight that improves not only your life, but also the lives of others. A powerful idea Peterson returns to is this: the purpose of life is not happiness, but meaning. Happiness is fleeting. It rises and falls with mood, weather, success, or failure. Meaning, however, is deeper. You can experience meaning even in suffering. For example, a parent caring for a sick child is not happy in the ordinary sense, but the act is profoundly meaningful. Meaning steadies you when happiness disappears. This leads us to an important practice: reframing suffering. No life is free from pain, but the difference between despair and resilience often lies in how you interpret your struggles. If you see suffering as unfair punishment, you collapse under its weight. If you see it as the training ground for strength and wisdom, it becomes fuel for transformation. This does not minimize pain, it gives it purpose. When you realize that even hardship can be part of your growth, You no longer feel crushed by it. Let's connect this to becoming the person you've always wanted to be. That version of yourself does not exist in a painless world. They exist in your world with its difficulties, losses, and challenges. You don't wait for struggles to disappear before you transform. You use those struggles as raw material for growth. In fact, the person you admire in your own imagination is shaped by the very trials you may be avoiding today. Another part of living meaningfully is service. As you develop your strength, your clarity, and your discipline, it's tempting to see growth as a purely personal achievement. But real meaning flourishes when you extend your growth outward. The skills you learn are not just for you. They can stabilize families, uplift friends, strengthen communities, and even inspire strangers. Service turns personal growth into something transcendent. Imagine two people climbing a mountain. One climbs only for their own satisfaction, while the other climbs to also guide those behind them. Both will reach great heights. But the second climber's journey carries greater weight. When you use your growth to help others, your life moves beyond personal success into legacy. At the same time, meaning requires humility. As you grow stronger, you may be tempted to believe you've figured everything out. But life will always remind you of your limitations. Humility keeps you open to learning. It reminds you that you are part of a larger story, one that began before you and will continue after you. This perspective brings peace because you realize you don't need to control everything. You only need to play your part faithfully. One of the most practical ways to live meaningfully is to set your life in order, not just for your own sake, but as an offering to others. When you clean your room, pursue your career honestly, or treat people with respect, you contribute to the collective order of the world. Every small act of responsibility pushes back against chaos. And when multiplied across many lives, these small acts shape societies. It's important to remember that meaning doesn't always appear grand. Sometimes it's in the quiet act of listening to someone who feels unheard. Sometimes it's in keeping a promise, even when it's inconvenient. Sometimes it's in working diligently at a task no one else notices. Meaning is not measured by applause. It is measured by alignment with what is true, good, and lasting. Still, there's a paradox here. While meaning requires structure, it also requires courage to step into the unknown. If you stay only in the safety of what you know, life becomes rigid and stale. Meaning emerges at the edge of your comfort zone, where you take risks, learn new skills, and confront fears. In this way, meaning is a dance between order and chaos, the known and the unknown. Stand too far in order, and you become stagnant. Stand too far in chaos, and you become overwhelmed. But balance them, and life becomes alive with significance. Ultimately, becoming the person you've always wanted to be is not about chasing an image of perfection. It is about courageously engaging with life's difficulties, aligning with truth, and choosing to carry responsibility that matters. It is about shaping yourself into someone who can bear life's burdens without bitterness and still contribute something good to the world. And here is the great reward when you live meaningfully. The question, what is the point of life, no longer haunts you. The answer is not found in abstract theories, but in your daily actions, your willingness to stand upright, speak truthfully, serve faithfully, and face chaos with courage. Meaning is not discovered in some distant land. It is woven into the responsibilities you take up today. So if you want to become the person you've always wanted to be, don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait for life to become easier. And don't wait for someone else to tell you it's possible. Start by embracing responsibility. Clarify your vision. Live by values. Accept suffering as part of growth. And anchor it all in meaning. Then, one day, when you look back on your journey, you'll see that the person you always dreamed of becoming was not a far-off ideal. It was the version of you that emerged every time you chose courage over comfort, truth over illusion, and meaning over emptiness. That person is not waiting in some distant tomorrow. That person is waiting within you, ready to be revealed through the choices you make today.